Okay, here's another story. Now, this is a long story, so you may have to splice this one up. Anyway, when when I finished grammar school, I went to high school, and I went to high school, and it was a Catholic high school, and I had a really good time in high school. Unfortunately, the administration didn't have as good a time, or didn't see my being there as quite up to their standards, I guess. And anyway, it was at the end of the school year, and I'm sitting on a bench at a baseball game or something, and this brother, it was a Catholic school, it was a Catholic brother, and Brother Tom, and he was in the administration. So he says to me, he says, hey Duff, what are your plans for next year? And I go, I guess I'll be back, you know. I didn't think anything of it. He said, I think that over. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's going to be an administrative screw up, and at the end of the day, there won't be a seat for you next year. So I was like, wow, you know, really came as a shock that I thought I was just having fun. The administration didn't think it was quite as funny as I did. So I had to go back and tell my parents. But Brother Tom said, if you transfer anywhere, there won't be anything on your record. It'll just be an administrative problem, and they didn't have a seat for you. That's it. So so I went back home and told my dad, you know, and of course he was disappointed. I mean, you know, really, you know, geez, I'm getting basically asked to leave. So a few days go by, and I'm thinking I'm probably going to go to the local high school. And a few days go by, and he comes home and says, hey, I know somebody at work. I talked to him, and he knew another guy, and he made an introduction at DePaul High School, and he thinks you can get in there. So I was like, and DePaul was a new high school, brand new high school. And in fact, my brother was going to be in the first class, he's in the first class at the new school, at the new building. And so I was going to go with him. And so I ended up going to the school, you know. So now I still felt bad about the whole thing, you know. So it turns out that they were going to have a football team, and they were going to have tryouts. So it was a new school, a new program. So I figured, hey, I'll try out for football. And based on how I performed with my local friends, I was pretty good at football. But I wasn't very big. I was about 5'9". I was going to sophomore, about 5'9". But I only weighed about 135 pounds. So anyway, so I go up to try out, and it's a one-day tryout. And it's only in shorts and T-shirt and stuff, sneakers, and just running, no contact or anything. So I go through the practice, and I felt like I did pretty good. They post a sheet of people who made the team. My name's not on the list. So I got cut the first day of practice. Now, in my lingo, getting cut on the first day of practice was for people who can't chew gum and walk at the same time. I mean, it was pretty bad. So I go home, and I'm sitting there and tell my dad I didn't make the team. So he said, well, hey, you know, there's other things, other opportunities. I said, yeah, I know, but I really tried hard. I wanted to make up for, you know, getting asked to leave my former high school. And I said, you know, so much for prayers, you know. So he says, what do you mean? I said, well, I said a lot of prayers and asked God to, you know, help me along here, you know, and obviously didn't answer my prayers. So he looks at me, he says, oh, no, he answered your prayers. I said, no, I didn't make the team, I got cut. He said, yeah, he said, he still answered your prayers. I said, what do you mean? He said, the answer was no. And I go, no, you don't understand. When you pray for something, you're supposed to get it, or maybe God didn't hear you, you know, he missed your prayer. it didn't say no. And it was like a revelation to me that it could be no, the answer. And then my father went on to tell me that, look, parents love their kids, but their kids ask for a lot of crazy things. And more than saying yes, parents say no most of the time to kids. Even though they love them, they're saying no. So the answer was no. There's something else for you, It just didn't work out. So I'm stunned, at the fact that it's a no. So anyway, I'm just going to play that a little later on, okay? The fact that it's a no. So anyway, I go to school, and I'm in school for maybe a week or a week and a half. And they come back and they announce that because they had a number of people that either dropped out of the football team or were hurt, that they were asking for more volunteers for the football team for tryouts. And in the announcement it said, no one will be cut. No one will be cut. So hey, so I tell my dad, gonna try out again. He says, okay, good luck. I try out again. And it's practice like the other one, just shorts, t-shirt and stuff. And at the end, everybody's coming in, and they had two sets of uniforms. You had a dress uniform for games, and that was really two. It was usually a white and a color uniform. And then they had a practice uniform. And they're giving out the uniforms, just the practice uniforms at this time. They come to me and they go, there's no more uniforms. More people tried out for the team than we had uniforms. We didn't think we'd get that many tryouts. So they said, you're not cut, but you'll have to supply your own uniform if you want to play. So I go, what's the difference between getting cut and having to supply your own uniform when I don't have the money to buy a uniform? So I go back home. My father said, hey, how'd it go? And I told him, hey, I was the last guy and they didn't have a uniform. So, he just said, wow, that's too bad, He said, but hey, there's a lesson there, there's something, this is something better, So I'm like, yeah, this is something better, right? Okay. So anyway, a couple of days go by and my father comes home and he's got a uniform. Somehow he knew somebody who knew somebody at the local high school, Passaic Valley High School, public high school. And he got an old practice uniform. When I say old, I mean old. The pants were so big and had hip pads, big hip pads and it had rib pads that stuck out around me. And the shoulder pads were actually small. It looked like something from the 1920s. And I had cleats, and they were high-cut cleats, not low-cut cleats like they were today. So I looked like something out of a movie, a comedy movie. But my dad had gotten this for me, so I did have a helmet. Just for playing around and stuff like that, I had bought a helmet. Now, it wasn't the quality of a helmet of the high school level, but it was a helmet, and it had it was a plastic helmet, and it had a face mask, a single bar face mask. Anyway, so I go to school, I got a bag with all this stuff in it, and I got a uniform. So I put the uniform on, and it's really ridiculous. I mean, it really is. But I got a uniform. And I'm a little skinny guy in a uniform. It's hanging all over me. But one of the things that I was a hitter. And I was, relative to today, I was a spearer. That means I hit with my head first, helmet first. And today it's outlawed. But in those days it wasn't outlawed. And hitting that way, it hurt the other guy. I mean, whoever you hit, it sent a message. So after 3 or 4 days playing with the bad uniform on and stuff, but hitting people, the coach goes to me at the end of practice. He says, hey, tomorrow you got a uniform. So after a long hard stretch, I finally earned a uniform. And now the story goes on, right? So this is sophomore year. I get to play sophomore year. I get to play junior year. And at the end of my junior year, they were voting for team captains, and I was voted one of the co-captains of the team. So I went from, I got passed over twice, and ended up eventually becoming the co-captain of the team for senior year. So anyway, that's the story. Now, the moral of the story, though, is the no. I found out later on in life, early enough on in business, that if you have to tell somebody essentially no for something, okay, some bad news, if you don't use the word no, if you don't use that word, N-O, people will interpret what you said in such a way that you didn't say no. It's okay. I mean, I'm telling you, I can tell you time and time again, and I've witnessed it too. I've done it myself and I've witnessed it, where you didn't say no. You said a lot of words, but you didn't say no. And really and truly, you have to say no. And it's good because it ends the situation. People now get on with something new. They pivot, okay? And they make changes. If you don't, they keep going down the same path. So it's an important point. It was a lesson I learned way back in 14 years old or something like that, but it was an important lesson. I've learned it, and it is important to say the word no. So anyway, that's the last little piece of advice for today. Take care. Good luck.